It's our greatest joy and honor to have with us Swamiji Atmapriyananda from India, who has as a specialty to unite the newest findings of science with ancient Vedantic thought. And this will be our first question. Why do you think is it important?
Swami Vivekananda spoke about it more than 100 years ago. At that time, whatever discoveries science had made regarding creation of the universe, regarding the fundamental nature of a human being, regarding the nature of the human mind and so on, he said these latest discoveries are impinging upon the various dogmas of religion, particularly the Christian religion at that time. And he said the various dogmas are getting pulverized like pieces of porcelain under the impact of the discoveries of modern science. Now, after more than 100 years, it's more than true that the younger people are turning away from religious dogmas, religious doctrines, religious beliefs, because they find no relevance of these beliefs and dogmas in their own personal lives. Science and following science technology has revolutionized the life of a human being on earth. And therefore they are asking certain questions about the purpose of life and the need for a God at all. Why do we need a God? So all that exists in the universe is according to certain fundamental laws of science. And therefore, where does God fit into this picture? So unless we can give a rational basis to religion, which is non-dogmatic, non-sectarian, and non-belief oriented, you cannot really address the fundamental urge of the modern scientific man who is religious but not based on dogma or belief.
Can you tell us which are the points where with Vedantic thought and the newest science, where do they meet? Which are the points where they say exactly the same thing?
In the Upanishads, which is the ancient wisdom of Vedanta, discovered by the Rishis of India more than 5,000-6,000 years ago, they asked certain very fundamental questions about life and human being itself. Man was made to believe out of fear once upon a time. Even the Rishis, for example, they worshipped the various forces of nature in utter fear. Now, man says, I will conquer nature. If nature is going to send me cold, I will protect myself by warming up through central heating. If the nature is going to give me heat, I will protect myself by having an air conditioner. If nature is going to give me, you can't really talk to the other man far away, I will conquer it through a mobile phone, through an email, through internet. And therefore I have the capacity in science and technology to conquer the various limitations which nature has imposed upon me. The Rishis asked this question long ago, initially out of fear of nature and worshipped nature. Later on they asked certain fundamental questions about their own lives. For example, the Kena Upanishad asks, Kene shitam padati preshitam mana Kena pranah prasamah praiti yukta Kene shitam vachamimam vadanti Chakshushrotram kavudevo yunakti. The meaning is, I open my eyes and look at you. What is the power which impels me to make this possible? You talk to me and I listen through my ears and interpret through my brain. What is the power which makes this possible? What is the power which makes my mind think? What is the power which makes my hands move? So is there a power apart from my own internal resources, say God, supernatural being, etc., which makes this possible? Then they asked very fundamental questions about how the senses are operating. I am hearing through my ear, seeing through my eye, tasting with my tongue, feeling the sense of touch with my skin, and smelling through my nose. How is it possible? Then they said, I am not hearing by the ear. There is an ear of the ear, there is an eye of the eye, the tongue of the tongue, skin of the skin, and the nose of the nose. The meaning thereby, there is something beyond the senses which empowers the senses to operate. So this empowering is being done by a being which is beyond the senses, beyond the mind and the intellect, because when I am asleep, there is no mind in operation and there is no intellect in operation. But I wake up and say, I slept well, I was very happy in sleep, which means there is a being which is experiencing all this, but not through the senses of the mind or the intellect. What is the being? What is the nature of this being? Is he a witness to all this? Is he transcendental? What is his nature? This has been repeatedly asked, and they discovered that there is a substance transcending the body, the organs, the mind, the intellect, which operates through all this as is instruments. For example, I am speaking now with the television. I am using speech as an instrument. I am not speech. I write a beautiful article using the computer. Somebody says, oh, this computer is wonderful, it's written an article. Computer didn't write, I wrote the article using the computer as an instrument. So these are instruments of action, instruments of perception, which are being used by a power which is not supernatural, not sitting there in the high heavens, but it is natural, but it transcends nature and controls nature. They asked a fundamental question, which is very scientific. Forget about God. Forget about human soul. Forget about where the soul goes after death. You analyze your daily experience. This is what science does. What science does is to ask certain fundamental questions about our daily life and existence. Let's not go so far. Start from Newton, for example. You know the famous story, the apple fell. This is an experience which Newton saw, perceived. And he asked, why does the apple fall? So he discovered that there is a force of gravitation because of which the earth is pulling all the objects to itself. Where does the force come from? Is it mysterious? Is it given by God? Is it supernatural? Several decades later, Einstein said, there is no mystery about it. The very nature of space and time are such, there is a curvature of space-time because of which it appears as it were all the bodies are coming together. So what I'm saying is, science takes everything to be natural and explains the natural phenomena according to certain fundamental natural laws. Swami Vivekananda said years ago that there is nothing supernatural. It's our inability to discover these laws which makes us believe that they are supernatural. Even today, in the 21st century, science does not know answers to certain questions. We are asking what is the nature of a particle. You know the famous discoveries by Stephen Hawking and the present discoveries in physics, the string theory, for example. They say there is not a localized particle, but a stretched string which exists in more than 4-dimensional space. They say 10-dimensional, 16-dimensional. What is the nature of space? What is the nature of time? These are certain things which are still not fully understood. So to be able to understand this, science is asking, you go through your experience. Don't impose certain things from outside, but analyze your daily experience. Now, Vedanta, the philosophy of the ancient Rishis in the Vedas, they said, what is your experience? The 5 senses through which I operate and get inputs from the outside world. In the computer language, we now call it input and output. So I get input from the outside world. I process it in the central processing unit, the CPU, which is the mind, and then give output through talks, through writings, through printers, and so on. Now, this is what happens to me when I am awake. Science is concerned only with the waking state. I doze off, I feel very tired, I sleep. I create a world within me in dream, which I do not know where it comes from. I see an elephant chasing me in dream. How can an elephant enter into me? I am a small little being. So I see cars moving. I see lectures going on. I see huge citadels. I see churches and mosques and temples. So where do they come from? So this is a dream state, which is a great mystery. I suppose you understand what I'm saying. I am taking my experience and finding out theories to fit that experience, which is exactly what science does. Science takes an experience, find out a theory which fits the experience, and if more data come in, if the theory cannot at all fit in, reject the theory totally and find out a new theory. This is exactly what science is doing. Somebody said, as you walk along the corridor of science, it is littered with the skeletons of discarded theories. But you don't say you are rejecting these theories. You are building newer and newer models of the universe. Science is at most making models of the universe. So science is getting experience after experience, data after data, and this theory is satisfactorily able to explain this data. Newer data come in, theory can't explain, add to the theory, modify the theory, cut the theory in two halves. If necessary, reject it totally and bring a new theory. So exactly the same way, the ancient Indian wisdom of Vedanta says, this is the experience which you have in waking state, but what about the dream state? Then you say, what should be the theory? We do not know whether the theory is true or not unless it can explain all the experiences. There is a space in me in which the elephants can move. I am seeing the elephants in dream. I need to explain it. Suppose you say, I don't care for the dream. I don't care for the sleep. I will explain only this. That means you are being unscientific.